I'm thoroughly persuaded that it's not a 19th century product, not just because of all the reasons people have put forward in the past to suggest that it's ancient. I do believe all of those, but I also am convinced that it does not necessarily represent the kind of doctrine that was being taught in the same way in the 19th century. If you just take our second article of faith, men will be punished for their own sins and not for Adam's transgression, which is taught clearly in the Book of Mormon, the doctrine of a fortunate fall, that the fall was as much a part of the foreordained plan of God as was the very atonement. That would not exactly have been taught in the 19th century. It would have been a radical teaching. There were Unitarians, to be sure. But Unitarians then, as well as now, would be seen as a bit off the main course of traditional Christianity. And so along comes Joseph Smith, delivers the Book of Mormon, and it talks about Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy, a doctrine that was just not exactly being taught in that day. And so the doctrine of the fall as an illustration. Too many illustrations of the kinds of teachings. Clearly, the Book of Mormon is striking out against any notion of predestination. Here you have the group of people who have distanced themselves from the faith and become apostates and find themselves standing atop the Rameumptom. The Book of Mormon condemns any notion that anyone before the foundation of the world was ordained to be the chosen of God. Mormonism and the Book of Mormon front and stage takes out after Calvinism. And so it's a Protestant world of the 19th century into which Joseph Smith has come. Let me approach this a little differently. The Book of Mormon sets forth a notion of priesthood that would not have fit that time as well either. Why? Catholicism was minimal in Joseph Smith's day. It was a Protestant world, as we've said. And thus, the concept of a priesthood of all believers, a la Martin Luther, and the Protestant Reformation, just does not fit the Book of Mormon. You have men being called by God. You have persons being ordained by the laying on of hands. You have the necessity of ordinances, none of which would have fit the Protestant world of that day. And so we're talking about a book whose teachings and whose ecclesiology very different than the 19th century.